Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review. And in this video I'm going to review Microphones in 2020 by the Microphones. This is the massive comeback of the Microphones project after 13 years since the release of the album Mount Eerie. Of course, as you know, after this point Phil ELVERUM made multiple other projects as Mount Eerie, which some of the more recent ones are definitely considered some of his best and some of his most devastating projects. And to be fair, I do find that even if I'm not that much of a huge fan when it comes to like the whole singer-songwriter stuff, I can definitely give to Phil ELVERUM that I feel that he's definitely one of the greatest, one of the most unique, and one of the most important singer-songwriters to come out in this generation. Being familiar and enjoying some of the projects from Mount Eerie, I decided to just listen to one project from the Microphones, this massive comeback for the first time. I've actually haven't listened to any other project that he has done as the Microphones, not even the Glow Part 2, which is definitely considered one of the greatest albums when it comes to this genre, but so far I haven't really managed to get into this album. I want to do it sometime soon. So this is basically my introduction to the whole sound of the Microphones. And I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't get into this album having necessarily that many expectations, considering that, like I said, I'm not the hugest fan of the genre and I find some of the projects as Mount Eerie to not be that captivating or that much of my cup of tea. The interesting thing though with this project is that it's just one continuous song going for 44 minutes and 44 seconds, which is a massive track in which I didn't really know what to expect whatsoever. So this track starts and basically it's just one simple guitar melody to it. It's just two simple chords just repeating themselves over and over again. But even though it's such a simplistic melody, I find it to be just so captivating. I was immediately mesmerized by this melody. I really felt like sort of a nostalgic feel, but I really did feel its sad and melancholic aesthetic. This just so simplistic melody instantly got stuck into my head and I was just really immersed by the whole result. So just with the beginning, it is really impressive how it really managed to captivate me in just such a short period of time. And this, like I said, would just go on and on and on and on. And I didn't really know where it was gonna go after this point. And this melody pretty much repeats itself for about 7 minutes. Then we have the lyrics coming to the place, we have Phil ELVERUM singing, and when it comes to the lyrics, I think that it's a very interesting way of having this spoken word delivery, and pretty much the whole thing is just a sort of a biography. It is pretty much an in-depth description of his story and his own experiences in a very poetic but mostly simplistic sort of way. There are not like words over here or that many sort of references or something that sound like really avant-garde or don't necessarily make that much sense. Instead, most of the stuff over here are pretty straightforward to their context, and it pretty much is like a story of how this whole project of the Microphones was made, points of inspiration, good times, struggles throughout this whole process, and I think it's done in a very interesting way in this instrumental that repeats itself and it has multiple moments to it, and it's really nice to see how he manages to blend this spoken word section in the majority of this instrumental. There might be some occasions where you might feel some of the deliveries do not really come out as greatly. There are occasions where even musically it can become a bit sloppy, but overall I'm pretty sure we're mostly talking about one take, which, if it is indeed just one take for 44 minutes without overdubbing and without additional mixing or additional sounds in the process, this is beyond impressive. And the very interesting thing with this track in particular is that it always caught me off guard, and it wasn't like with some major transitions. Instead, most of the transitions made sense and they weren't something like really that major of a transition, but instead I was just immersed with this whole simplicity of the track, and I thought that it was just going to be a sort of just simply guitar song, which is not the case. We don't have just acoustic guitar. As the track progresses, there are also electric guitars being thrown into the mix. There is also drumming. There are also some very little portions of piano into the mix. And there are also some big segments of just really drawn out and really heavy and distorted bass or guitar, whatever it is, and it has some quite long drawn passages to this thing, which is something that we saw in some respects into the album of Mount Erie Now Only. This might have been something that he's been doing for years and I might not know of it, but overall I just found really interesting how he just after a while use all of those passages, which will get you into a different aesthetic, a different sort of passage. But what's really impressive about this whole thing is that even though it has all of those change-ups and all of those transitions throughout lots of portions through this track, it is really impressive that the main idea is always present throughout this entire track. The main idea never ceases to exist, and I find this to be really impressive, because when I heard of this track the first time, I thought that there has to be like even a minor change, like something that is different. But when I listen to the track again and having the main melodies get stuck to my head, I just found it really shocking how out of all the change-ups, the main melody just doesn't stop existing throughout the entirety of this thing. And I just love the way it is developed throughout this whole thing with all of the different passages. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that every single passage works the same way. I think that some of them work better compared to the others, and here is where my main concern with this album comes into place, is that I find that some of the portions in the mixing are not that great. I get that this album mainly has a lo-fi appeal. It mostly goes into this indie folk sound, which is something that I don't necessarily have an issue with, but there are some of the drone passages, for example, or like with some of the drumming, where it might become a bit louder into the mix than necessary. And the thing is that the vocals and the delivery are mostly silent throughout this whole thing. Like, they do not reach a climax or a moment of intensity compared to some parts of the instrumentation, and so it makes some of the moments when it comes to the vocals to really just get lost into the mix. There are many occasions where I feel that if you don't have the lyrics in front of you, you can't really get what he's saying, because there are occasions where I feel that the instrumentals might almost cover completely some of the vocal passages. But other than that, there's not really that much to say about Microphones in 2020. It's just one big continuous track, and I think it's more of a continuous and long track that you mostly need to experience for yourselves. I'm actually really shocked and really impressed how immersive and how captivating this whole thing has been from start to finish. I'm absolutely in love with this project. I do get its high praise and I think that this album in particular totally deserves it. For being someone who's not that much into singer-songwriter stuff, I'm really surprised how much I enjoyed this one track. It is amazing. It is without a doubt one of the greatest projects I've heard all year and I highly recommend this thing. I'm going to give Microphones in 2020 an 8 out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it? Dislike it? Why? And what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.